everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tales Crafts, and today I'm creating 3 tags with these products that you see across the screen here. I actually used the same products that I used in day 5 of my holiday card series. I created a really cute rooftop chimney scene using the exact same products. I had some leftovers, so I thought, why not create some tags? So I have some watercolor panels cut to 3 by 4 inches, and on all 3 I'm going to ink blend the same Distress Oxide inks. I use Chipped Sapphire and Faded Jeans at the top. I am using a Picket Fence Studio blender brush to apply the ink. You can see that this panel I have cut at a diagonal, and that's just because I am using up my scraps of watercolor paper. I did not purposely do that, that's just how it was cut, but I decided I'm going to work with it. So you're gonna see what I do with that tag. So I have one more that I'll just finish up inking here. And then I'm going to line all 3 up side by side and spray them with my Distress water sprayer. And because I'm using watercolor paper, it's going to lift the ink significantly. And it's because on watercolor paper, the ink does not fully absorb into the paper. The ink kind of sits on top, so it makes it very easy to lift some of the ink. So I just showed you very quickly my Liquitex modeling paste, and this is basically texture paste. This is not a traditional craft supply. It is, I think, meant for artists, but I have seen some mixed media people work with it, and I thought it would work fantastic to create dimensional snow on these tags. So I have a Gina K stencil here called Snowfall, and I'm using a plastic palette knife to apply the modeling paste through the stencil, and I wish the video could pick up on the dimension. It is super cool. What I love about this is that it stays wet for quite a while. It will take a couple minutes to dry, and during that time you can pour glitter over it, embossing powder, and it's still going to maintain that dimension. So it's a really cool little art supply to have. I purchased it at Michael's with a 40% discount, and that jar is probably going to last me a couple years. So here you can see I have one panel that I did not add the snow to, and that is because I want to add my die cuts first and then apply the stencil over so that it looks like there's snow falling over the little houses that I'm going to put on this tag. So here you can see I attached 2 stitched snow hills to the bottom of the tag, and now I'm going through my leftovers from day 5 of my holiday card series. I had quite a few extra stamped and colored images that I wanted to use up, and I knew for one of the tags I could use the little houses from the Lawn Fawn Winter Village stamp set. So I just created a quick little scene, and I'm going to attach all the images down with my art glitter glue. There is no dimension on this tag because I knew that snow was going to be dimensional, and I wanted to apply the texture paste through the stencil as flat as possible. And even gluing it flat, there is still dimension because these images were stamped and colored on 110-pound cardstock. But by gluing them completely flat, it is going to make the stenciling process a lot easier for me. So here you can see I brought my Gina K stencil back in, and I'm going to apply the texture paste through the stencil with my palette knife. And once I remove the stencil from the tag, you're going to see that those dots cover some of the die cuts, which was what I was going for. However, some of the dots were a little bit large and covered the windows of my houses. So I used the palette knife to scrape off some of those dots. And yeah, I like how that turned out. I will come back to that card. I'm going to let it dry. Now, while I was working on that tag, my other 2 completely dried. So I can go ahead and start my second panel here. I have a strip of brown cardstock that I added to the bottom of the tag. I have the chimney, which again, I showed how to assemble that in day 5 of my card series. And I'm going to add the chimney to the left side of the brown strip, which is going to be my roof line. I added some string of lights to the roof, and then I'm also going to add some leftover string of lights to the chimney. Here you can see I didn't have another light bulb for one of my lights, so I'll just attach that down with my art glitter glue. and then I can attach the string on top of the chimney. For this little scene, I decided to go with Santa and his bag of toys. And again, I'm going to glue them down flat. And here you can see the snow is in the background, so the images do pop out much more than the first tag did. So it's kind of up to you to decide what you prefer. I kind of prefer when the snow is in the background, but there are occasions where I do want the snow to be falling on top of my die cuts, and I thought out of all 3 tags, the village would look the best with that design. So here I'm working on my 3rd little scene, and I have the slanted ink blended piece, and I'm going to attach some foam tape behind this stitch snow hill, and then I will cut the excess off the snow hill, again cutting in that slanted direction. And then the only die cuts I had left were Miss Claus and the little reindeer. I know this is kind of a random scene, but I still think it's cute. And then I added the lights at the top of the tag just to fill in the top area. I'm going to add foam tape behind Mrs. Claus' head, and then the areas that overlap the snowbank, I just used art glitter glue. I did the same thing with the reindeer. And here I'm going to show you how I attach the light bulbs to the string of lights. In the Lawn Fawn die set, you get the string of lights, which I cut from white cardstock, and then the little light bulbs I cut from yellow and dark yellow cardstock. I was going for that blinking yellow light effect when, you know, the lights kind of flicker on and off. Yeah, that's what I was going for. I don't know if that's what it looks like, but I like it. So we're back to the first tag, and it has completely dried at this point. So I have a slightly longer piece of red cardstock, and I thought I would layer the scene on top of the colored cardstock, which will eventually become another tag. You're going to see what I'm talking about a little bit later on in the video, but basically I just cut some colored panels that match the colors within the scene. So for this Santa, I chose a dark blue panel that's slightly longer than the ink blended one. And at the bottom of the longer colored panels, I'm going to stamp my sentiments. So for the dark blue tag, I chose "We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year." Here you can see I did a really bad job embossing that sentiment. There's quite a bit of excess powder there. I would recommend using a powder tool, but 5 times out of 10, I forget to grab it. So I'm going to use my finger and a paintbrush to remove the excess powder. Luckily, I was able to do that successfully. And for the red panel, I chose just "Merry Christmas." And then for Miss Claus, since her dress had green in it, I went with a green backer card. And I went with "Merry Xmas" because honestly, that was the only sentiment that fit diagonally across this panel. So I will ink it up with Versamark ink and white heat emboss it. And I'm doing all of the embossing at once just to save time. By the way, all these sentiments come from the Lawn Fawn Offset Sayings Christmas stamp set. And by the way, I forgot to mention that I cut these colored panels from heavyweight cardstock. So the red and green are 100 pound, and I think the dark blue is 80 pound. I do go with heavier cardstock for my tags just in case my recipient hangs them on their tree. And I already know that these are gonna go to my family members, so they're most likely gonna come back to me, and I'm for sure gonna put them on my tree. So yeah, I try to make them as sturdy as possible so that they last a couple years. But here you can see all of the ink blended panels layered on top of the colored panels, and I'm going to punch through both of them at once with my very old hole puncher. You see I have to use both hands to get that hole to punch through, but it creates a nice sized hole, and I'm going to create the tag shape just by snipping the top corners. Very simple, just use my scissors. You don't need a tag die, guys. I know I use a lot of tag dies because I have them, but if you want a certain size, a certain width or height, and you don't have a tag die for that measurement, you can easily create your own tags. So I wanted to add some hole reinforcers, just again in case this is hung on a tree. So I cut the same colored cardstock and I added one reinforcer to the ink blended panel and one to the back of the solid tag. And then for the twine, I just went with some white thread, and that's going to finish off my first tag. For my green tag, I'm going to cut it diagonally to match with my ink blended tag. And then I will add my green reinforcer to my ink blended tag. And then I'll add my other reinforcer to the solid green tag at the back. And as you saw with my first tag, I did not glue the ink blended tag on top of the colored tag. You definitely can if you want, but I kind of like that the twine will tie them together pretty tight, but you can still definitely move the two pieces if you want to. So that's going to complete the second tag. For my last one, I decided to create a banner at the end of the dark blue tag. You can use a die, but I just went in with my scissors since everything else is freehand cut for these tags. I will add my dark blue hole reinforcer to the front of my ink blended piece, and then I'll add my second blue reinforcer to the back of my solid blue tag. Again, I will take some white thread and loop it through the hole. I personally like to use twine with my tags. I think it's easier to put onto gifts. But yeah, that is going to complete all 3 tags. Let me know what you guys think. And if you haven't yet already, please subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell so you're notified when I post another video. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye!